Everybody, welcome back to Live at 5 with SFC Define. So glad you could join me today. We are closing out this month. Today is the fourth weekend, the last weekend of February. February is already gone. Can you believe that? Like, we are already in month number 3 of this year. And I certainly hope that you know that the best is still yet to come for you. It's totally yet to come. But this month we have spent a lot of time talking about what got me here, in lieu of so many suicides, so many people dealing with depression and mental health and stuff, and going down that avenue of saying I can't take anymore. Um, Life isn't good. Life isn't fair. All of that kind of stuff that we see, that we've seen in the last probably 2 months, really, I think, more so than we have before. But so we talked about that, and we're going to continue that conversation today as we close things out. I really, really want to do a recap. We thought we were going to be able to do a Zoom today so that we could sort of kind of have it on and be airing it and seeing each other's faces and all that stuff. But we didn't pull that together. But moving forward, we're going to close out every one of our months with a Zoom, so where we can just sit down and have a roundtable discussion that we can see each other. I am the type of person, I like to read facial expressions and body language just to make sure that you're understanding what I'm saying, because a lot of times we don't say something and then we leave a little confused or not getting the full understanding of what is being discussed, because we can't see each other's body language and we just don't talk. So that's why I want to do a Zoom, and I'm just excited to hear your input. I want to get all of your input, and I want us to bounce those ideas off of each other. So moving forward, every fourth or fifth weekend, however the month ends, we're going to close out whatever thing we're talking about with a Zoom meeting, and hopefully I can get y'all's participation. But again, nonetheless, I am so glad that you guys are here with me today as we close out this session today, this month's theme on what got me here. I gave you guys last week, we talked actually for the last couple of weeks in great detail about 5 different areas that I think is so beneficial in trying to process the whole idea of how did I end up getting here? What circumstance, what situation got me to the place where I feel like I want to end my life, or I feel like I'm unraveling, or I'm not holding it together. What situation got you here? And then, the next thing with that is, why are you staying there? Remember what life was like for you prior to that situation. You got to remember what it was like prior to that situation. And now, because this situation has happened to you yesterday, last month, last year, 5 years ago, you've decided to let this situation define you. And as a result, everything about you has changed. Your disposition, your perception of life, your demeanor, all of that stuff has begun to change because you have allowed a temporary situation to define you or redefine you as an individual. So we need to get past that. We need to get over that and get through this whole process of what got me here. One of the key points that we talked about was acknowledgement. I think we feel like that sometimes when we think that we're the victim, we don't want to say it because it's a sign of weakness. I mean, I'm not telling you to acknowledge it to the world. I'm not telling you to acknowledge it, but at least you got to be courageous or brave enough to acknowledge it to yourself. That acknowledgement of saying, yes, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I know that got me here. The reality is, if it didn't destroy you, if it didn't kill you, you've got to figure out how to make it work for you. I often say, in life, things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And when we fail to recognize the for us part and not the to us part, we sort of kind of become stuck. in that moment, that negative moment, and the rest of our lives, our personalities are built around that negativity and that negative moment, and nobody suffers from that but you. If another person was involved in getting you to this place, this state of mind, state of being, look at how their life has gone on. Look at how their life, you're the one that's still bitter, you're still hurting, you're still frustrated. You've got to learn how to acknowledge it and realize it did not destroy you, it did not kill you. But what it can do is make you better, it can make you wiser. So, acknowledgement is pivotal in getting past the past, acknowledging what got me here, what choice did I make years ago, months ago, days ago, hours ago, that got me feeling like this, feeling like that I'm not worthy of happiness, I'm not worthy of peace, I'm not worthy of a good life, I'm not worthy to be the best version of myself. So those things, that's number one. And I'm just recapping this for those of you that were not a part of the live stream last week. I just want to recap it again as we're closing out this month. The next thing we talked about was acceptance. After you acknowledge it, you realize that one situation, that one circumstance that sort of kind of took you down this rabbit hole. You got to own it. It happened. Yes, they pissed me off. They made me mad. They made me angry. And now I'm bitter because they hurt me. They lied to me. They lied on me. They left me. They walked out on me. They told me that I would never be anybody or have anything. Accept that. Accept that. But don't accept it to let it damage or destroy you. Own it and own those feelings. Accept what you are feeling right now. Acknowledge that anger. Accept the fact that it pissed you off. It made you angry. Accept that. Because that's human. It's just an emotion that needs to be expressed. It's an emotion that needs to be accepted and then dealt with. Because if you don't accept it and deal with it, it'll keep coming up. It'll keep coming. Every time you tell that story about how somebody hurt you or how somebody wronged you, that emotion keeps coming up. You've got to accept the fact and then do something about it. Talk about it, deal with it, and learn from it. The next thing is replacing that emotion with something more positive. When you replace that, it changes your mindset. Replacing a negative emotion with a positive emotion literally changes your perception about you, about life, about the situation. It literally changes your perception. Hey, Jason. Jason says accepting gives freedom to move to the next steps of healing. Absolutely. Well said. It does. It gives you the freedom to move to your next step of healing. And it's easier after you accept it and acknowledge it to be able to replace that negative feeling, that negative emotion with something positive. How do you replace a negative emotion? How do you replace bitterness and turn it into betterness? How do you turn from being a victim to being a victor? How do you shift those mindsets? Let's talk for briefly about that, because one of the things that I shared recently is the fact that we have so much control, much more control over our thoughts than we give ourselves credit for. Literally, you can be thinking one thing, and before that thought leaves your mind, you can think something else. So it's literally you deciding. It's a choice. It's that simple. You decide, I'm not going to think about this anymore. I can replace this thought with something that's more productive. And sometimes you have to not only think, but you have to do. A lot of times when I'm feeling a certain way and I'm down this little pity party and I got my whole group of people in my head throwing me a pity party, I have to get up and do something. Like I have to figure out what is it that I can do that will help get my mind off of this. And as I'm doing something, my thoughts begin to shift. My thoughts begin to reignite, and I start replacing those negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Sometimes you got to do something, play some music or something that will help override or drown out those negative thoughts and become more productive. Um, you've got to learn how to replace them. Another thing too, the very last thing that we talked about is just repetition. Um, we are creatures of habit. Most of our lives, every aspect of our lives, are centered around habits that we have formed over the years, over the course of our time. We have literally formed habits. We have a habit of how to get out of the house in the morning on time. We have a habit of how to get through the day at work, or a habit of how to get back home. We follow that same path. Well, mentally, you have to establish those habits through repetition. And so when you start replacing those negative thoughts with positive thoughts, you don't just think it one time and expect there to be a change. You have to be repetitive with those positive thoughts. Like, you have to write them down sometimes, post them on your bathroom mirror, post them on your refrigerator, put them in your car, and remind yourself of the positive thoughts. I won't go back to that place anymore. I won't go back to that situation that reminds me of a bad decision that I made. I'm going to stay positive. That was then, this is now. I'm going to live in my now. I'm going to make sure that I witness and see the best version of myself. You have to do that. That's no one else's responsibility but yours. There's always something that can happen negatively for any one of us at any given minute. That's called living life. That is an expression of your life's journey. Anything can happen at the drop of a dime. It's not about what happens to you, but it's about how you respond to it. Most of us react. I think it was Covey that said there's a difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is done simply off of emotions. You're, if you're a hothead, if you're whatever, reactions, you typically just react based off of how it made you feel for that moment. But then you have to learn how not to react and how to respond, because responding means that it's more cognitive. You think through it, you think about it, and you get an understanding. Before you react, you learn how to sit back, breathe, and then respond. So develop that habit, sit back, and when you feel those thoughts coming that would take you back to that place where you were embarrassed, where you were hurt, where you were walked out on, where you were lied to, you have to figure out this one thing. Are you going to react to those thoughts, or are you going to respond to those thoughts? If you react to them, yeah, you're just going to keep that negative habit going. But when you take the time to process and replace those negative thoughts with positive thoughts, you get to respond. And the way you respond is simply by creating those affirmations that says, you know what, just because I think it, don't mean it's true. Just because it ran through my head, don't mean I have to entertain that thought. Just because I'm having a bad moment, don't mean that it has to bring other bad moments. So we learn how to respond, and that is our recap for today. If you have some questions, now is the time to ask, because I think that when we acknowledge, accept, and become aware of those things, then that's when we can start that repetition, start replacing those negative habits. Remember, there is something, if you're not living your best life, if you always wake up dreading the day, if you're always feeling like you're the victim, if you always got an excuse to fail as opposed to a reason to succeed, then there's something that got you here. Something, there was something that was said to you, something that was done to you that got you to this place where your self-esteem plummeted, where your dignity was challenged, where your integrity was questioned. Something got you here. Once you realize what that is, life begins to turn the corner for you. I promise you it do. It begins to turn the corner, and it begins to show you that life is worth living. When you wake up looking for bad, bad comes to you. But the antithesis of that is when you wake up looking for good, good comes to you. So that's completely the opposite. It's about your mindset, the way you train your brain, the way you take control of your thoughts, being in control of what happens and what goes on through your mind. One thing you need to know, you cannot stop yourself from thinking, but you can control what you think. You can't stop. We are constantly thinking every second of every day. That's what our mind do. That's how it's been set up. But we can control what we think. You're going to think, but you can control it. And I assure you that if you learn how to train your thoughts and train your thinking, then you get to determine what your day, your month, your year, your life looks like, because you get to create those positive thoughts even in the midst of a negative situation. Remember, there is nothing that can happen to you if you don't allow it. Everything happens for you. We love to quote the scripture that I know that all things work together for the good of them that love God. That is so true. That is so true. And if you love yourself, you love God. So all you have to do is embrace that. Embrace that truth that nothing happens to me. It only happens for me. No matter what happens, only good can come to you when you have good thoughts. Do you happen to have any more great book selections? What was the last one? What was the last one I gave? Feeling is the Secret, I believe, is the last one, I believe. I think it's what let me get back with you, Catherine, on that. Let me look into some. I have tons, and I just got a brain freeze right now. But yeah, Feeling is the Secret is good. Oh, I think The Power of the Subconscious Mind, and I can't think of the, can you look that up real quick? The Power of the Subconscious Mind is a great book. It teaches you how to control your thoughts and helps you control your thoughts. Who is the author? Oh, Joseph Murphy. Joseph Murphy, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. Check that out. It's a lengthy book, but a good book. It's a lengthy book, but a good book. I often refer back to it when I'm having one of those moments, moments that I have to take control of my thoughts and do that. So that's it for today, guys. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate all of the input. Before we hang up or whatever, check out, do you have any questions or comments? I have loved doing this month's theme, What Got Me Here. I think based off of people's comments after the show goes off and throughout the week, I think you guys have gotten something out of this, and I'm certainly glad that you did. How do you encourage someone to move past negative behaviors when they are benefiting from negative attention? That is a super good question. How do you encourage someone to move past negative behaviors when they are benefiting from negative attention? I think the way that I could answer that is probably not the best way, is you remove the benefits of the negative attention. Because, as long as we continue to feed into that for that person, they're going to keep acting that way simply because they're getting something from it. Once we stop receiving, we change our behaviors. It's just like a kid ask, but if they never receive, eventually they'll stop asking because they never receive. But if they always receive something every time they ask, that asking just continues to escalate and it becomes, whatever. Another thing based off of that question is, how do you encourage someone? Sometimes you have to encourage them. How do I say this? How do you encourage someone to move past negative behaviors. I think the number one thing that you don't encourage them first to move past them, you've got to encourage them first to acknowledge them, to acknowledge that they are negative behaviors. Because some folk don't see them as negative behaviors. I guess a negative behavior could possibly be a relative term, and what's negative to you may not be negative to somebody else. So I think that we need to identify or help that person identify exactly what that negative behavior is and show them what it looks like from your perspective. And then you can help them alter or change that negative behavior. But again, as long as they're getting something from it, you have to stop the benefit. You have to stop the reward, because as long as they keep getting rewarded for it, then they're going to keep doing it. And after a while, it becomes a habit, it becomes natural, or it becomes what they consider normal. So first identify what that negative behavior is, and then you've got to cut that reward off. Otherwise, they're going to keep doing it. Jason says, this is really good. For too many times we hold on to the hurt from 10 years ago. Yes, break free. And I mean, literally, is not even that far back. A lot of us do 10, 20, 30 years ago. But let's work backwards. Let's get past the hurt that we experienced last week or last month and start working our way back from weeks to months to years, and watch how our lives will begin to transform. Our lives will immediately begin to transform. We have so much power. We sit back and we think life just happens to us. Life doesn't just happen. We create it with our thoughts. What you focus on, you create. If you're focusing on negative, have you ever wondered why you're in a cycle? Like you're always meeting the same caliber of people. You're always entertaining the same group of like-minded. It is because that's what you think about. You change your thoughts, you change your company. You change your company, you change your life. You change your life, you change your lifestyle. All of that, the common denominator is the way that you think. It is your thoughts. And so many times we have lip service. We say, oh, yeah, I know who I am. I am this and I am that. I'm great. I'm Dr. So-and-so and I'm Mrs. So-and-so and I'm Reverend so-and-so. But that's all coming off of your lips. What is happening on the inside? What is happening in your mind? Are your thoughts about you lining up with your words about you? That's what I need you to figure out. And then once your thoughts and your words align, that's when the magic happens. That's when you start seeing things wonderful. Just affirmations are not enough if you don't change your thought pattern. You have to change your thought pattern, because once you change your thought pattern, everything that comes out of your mouth aligns with your thoughts, and your words are what creates your lifestyle. It's literally that simple. You start changing the way you think, and the way you think will teach your mouth what to say, how to say it, and then you start creating. Words are creative. What you say is what you create. Same way on the opposite end of that spectrum. If you're having negative thoughts, negative words, negative experiences. Okay, so think about that. Think about that all of this week. Okay, and I am excited about what is getting ready to happen for those of you who will embrace this, for those of you who will acknowledge, accept, replace, repeat, all of that stuff. These little 5 things, and you're going to be able to find those on our website. And I want you to take that, and I want you to embrace it and watch your life transform. Stop being a victim. You're bigger than that. You're better than that. Take life by the horns and live your best life. Live your best version of you. All right? Remember, stay strong, stay focused, stay confident, stay defined based off of your terms and not somebody else's. All right? Have a good rest of the day, a good rest of the week, and we'll see you next week.